I want to introduce our first speaker. Guys, we're really excited to have him here. Kyle McCurdy, he actually, come on up, Kyle. Kyle actually works for Amazon. He's a small business owner, and he has a private label brand that a brand that he's building on and off Amazon, but he works for Amazon, and I know if we do question and answer, we might be here all day. So, but let's welcome Kyle McCurdy.
Thank you so much, Travis. And thanks to everyone here. I'm really honored and humbled and excited to be here. I know selling on Amazon isn't easy. I know that intimately from the work that I do. And this is such an awesome opportunity to network and to learn and to try and not stub our toes on the same rocks that perhaps somebody before us did. So I'm excited to talk with you about my perspective on Amazon, what I'm doing with my business on Amazon, and have some fun. So my background is I'm a Canadian, so it was really awesome to see those flags over there. I grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and I've spent most of my career in B2B enterprise sales, selling products and services to corporations. And about a year ago, I made a career transition and was brought on as a strategic account manager for Amazon Business. So I work with sellers to help them optimize their accounts and take advantage of the growing B2B e-commerce marketplace that Amazon's working on. I'm not here representing Amazon. I'm here representing myself and my own business, which is called Dunce Cap Games, and we do board and card games. And with that said, I've always been a huge fan of the organization. I think the decisions that Amazon's make and their operating philosophy, and how Jeff Bezos has steered the company is fascinating, and it's something that we can all learn from. So what I'm going to talk with you about today is what I view as two key operating philosophies that Amazon uses to make decisions and run their business that we can all use to improve our own businesses and perhaps predict future decisions that Amazon will make as the organization continues to grow. And I'm also going to talk with you about a unique thing that Amazon does, and that is the Jeff Bezos letter to shareholders that he publishes every year. By show of hands, does anybody read this? A few of us? Awesome. So he publishes that every year, and it's not your traditional projections and numbers and spreadsheets. It's an actual glimpse into how Amazon makes decisions and what Jeff Bezos' philosophy is and what his goals are for the coming years. He released the first one in '97 when the company went public, and the most recent one was obviously 2017. So we have 20 years of these letters now that we can look back through and get a glimpse into the philosophy of Amazon, which is pretty cool. The information that I will be presenting is also all public. It's from those shareholder letters. It's from the book, The Everything Store by Brad Stone. And if you haven't read that, I'd recommend picking it up for a very unbiased look into the company of Amazon. And obviously some articles and just conversations and anecdotes that I've had throughout my life. The title of Insist on the Highest Standards comes straight out of Jeff Bezos' most recent letter to his shareholders. In that letter, he breaks down what he views as four key foundations of high standards and how to populate those in your business. So I'm not going to go through those, but I'd recommend checking it out to get a glimpse inside the head of Jeff. I know Travis did some polling of the audience. I'm curious as well, since we have so many sellers on Amazon. By a show of hands, how many folks in the room are using Fulfillment by Amazon? Wow. Seller Fulfilled Prime? Anyone? A few of us? Cool. How many brand owners on Amazon that own a brand and have it registered in brand registry? Oh, good. Cool. All right. And I will leave time at the end for questions. I'll answer what I can. And I will be here today and tomorrow and happy to talk with anyone that would like to get a deeper glimpse into what I do as an account manager at Amazon, and how I work with sellers and what I typically advise. All right, so let's jump right into the first shareholder letter. Here's Jeff in 1997, selling books, starting an internet company right before the dot-com bust, looking pretty smug. And so in 97, Amazon had $148 million in revenue, 1.5 million customers, and 614 employees. The theme from that letter of insisting on obsession over customers and long-term thinking, that hasn't changed at all. This shareholder letter is published as an appendix at the bottom of every single shareholder letter since this one was released. This is a core of Amazon. Part of onboarding at Amazon is reading this letter. It's really interesting that 20 years later, the core of the company and how we make decisions hasn't changed all that much. Looking at early Amazon from 97 through the dot-com bust, you can see these bold investment decisions. I mean, if you look at some of the failures that Amazon has had over the years with the companies they've purchased, it really speaks to this idea of we're going to learn lessons, we're going to make bold risks, and we're going to try and we're going to fail. And we're going to learn from it. Fast forwarding to 2016, and the reason I'm doing that is we have some, I threw this one in there, just it kind of hurts with regret, but if you bought Amazon in 97, you'd have had a 47,000% increase on your share, which is just crazy numbers. Yeah, the market cap of Amazon is skyrocketing. So in 2016, this is the most recent slides that were released or numbers that are released for where the revenue of Amazon comes from. So you're looking at most of the money coming from North America and AWS. Obviously, AWS is a primary profit center for Amazon. And I'll ask you to try and remember these bullet point numbers as we move through the presentation, with 300 million active customer accounts, 270,000 employees, and 49% of all products coming from marketplace sellers. Here's a quick look at the Amazon ecosystem in 96. And you can see the top international expansion. Amazon's going all over the world. Category expansion, everything from sporting goods to car parts to tools, books at the foundation. And then the family of companies. Obviously, even since 2016, this has grown quite a bit, and we're not seeing Whole Foods on there. And so here's Jeff now, looking a little bit different, getting in shape for his race into space, right? And in 2017, the most recent shareholder letter, we see quite a change in the numbers. So now we're at 177 billion in revenue, 100 million Prime customers. This is the first time that Amazon has ever quantified how many people are actually Prime members. We're looking at 560,000 employees. Just in 2016, that number was 270,000. I mean, this growth is astronomical. And a continued focus on long-term thinking and a passion for customers. Interestingly, the idea of high standard is kind of a cultural thing at Amazon, right? I'm sure you all have heard about how at Amazon you work long, hard, and smart. You don't get to choose to. And that is true. There's a lot of brilliant, hardworking people that work long hours at Amazon. And it speaks to this idea that Jeff talks about of high standards and how we have to maintain and continue to press high standards to keep customers. Customers, as he mentions, are divinely discontent. They're always looking for a better way and an easier way to do things. So to stay current with them, we have to have high standards. So I threw this in just because the numbers tell a story in them. This could be a whole presentation by itself, looking at this level of growth. So this is 20 years of Amazon as a public company, going from 614 employees to 560,000, same mirrored over in revenue. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think this is going to slow down anytime soon. This will continue to spike. Another interesting thing that Jeff talks about in the most recent shareholder letter is that now over half of sales of products and revenue are coming from marketplace sellers like yourselves. So what we call the retail side of Amazon, or where Amazon purchases a product and then resells it, is getting beat out and not keeping up with marketplace. I see that continuing to go in that trend as well. And Amazon's even starting to focus on we empower small and medium businesses. That's becoming part of the values of the company. So here we are, Amazon 2018, the biospheres in downtown Seattle. We're wondering where HQ2 will be. I heard Denver is still on the list, maybe. Could be exciting. I have no idea where it'll be. And if I did, they wouldn't let me tell you. And what do we have? We have Alexa, getting very popular. The war with Donald Trump, and the tweet war between, well, I guess we're not fighting back, but we have Whole Foods. I was overhearing a conversation just yesterday about how the Whole Foods experience is changing with this Amazon ownership. And now when you purchase things, the cashiers are asking, are you a Prime member? Because you get a discount. So that ecosystem's shifting. Amazon finalized the purchase of Ring, which has that doorbell with the camera. I own that now. And then, of course, just having the richest human being on earth change to Jeff Bezos. I live in Seattle, and I don't know what it says about the area, but the two richest people in the world live in Seattle. Isn't that kind of a strange thing? All right, so the core of Amazon has not changed since 1997, as I mentioned. And the mission is still to be Earth's most customer-centric company. So the way Amazon does that is by focusing on price, selection, and convenience. We always talk at Amazon about lowering prices for customers, getting a bigger selection on the catalog, and how that's going to pull more customers to Amazon. And that also helps me transition into the first operating principle I'd like to talk with you about. And Amazon has 14 leadership principles that aren't just a poster on the wall. They are actually woven into the culture of the organization, and it's talked about in one-on-ones and meetings. And if you're not familiar with those, I highly recommend you check them out. And at the end of my presentation, I have some links and some resources that you can copy down that'll take you to the leadership principles, the letters to the shareholders, and then some other cool resources that we use to help sellers take advantage of some Amazon data. Going into this operating principle, is anyone in the room familiar with the book Good to Great by Jim Collins? A few of us? That's where this principle comes from, and that book was published in October of 2001. And right before it was published, Amazon executives actually invited Jim Collins to come out to a 2-day offsite at Jeff Bezos' house. In that meeting, Jim presented the finding from his books and talked about how good is the enemy of great, and defined some of the key findings excuse me, from his research about what it takes to make a lasting company and a great company. And during that meeting, Amazon executives took a lot of notes and sketched down one of the principles that Jim talks about. And it's the idea of a flywheel. And that there's key inputs in all of our businesses that are going to increase the velocity and the momentum and can create what's called a virtuous cycle. So if we put resources or acquire companies in this particular vein, it can help us speed up the momentum of our company. And they sketched it down on a note or on a napkin. And this image permeates Amazon on so many different levels. And it's the Amazon flywheel, or the Amazon virtuous cycle. And the idea is that we're going to use these things to increase the velocity and growth of our business. And no matter which area we invest in, it's going to speed us up. So if we make a better customer experience, then we're going to get more traffic on the website, which is going to attract more sellers to sell on Amazon, which is going to increase the selection, which will lead to growth, which will lead to a lower cost structure, which will lead to lower prices, and it's the cycle. And so when we invest in one of these areas, it speeds the momentum up of our entire organization. So when we're looking at where to invest money or what kind of a company to acquire, Amazon looks at this flywheel and says, where does it fit? How is this helping the flywheel? And I think this concept is so valuable. And I hope in looking at this that we can answer or at least start exploring two questions. And one is, how can I use this concept to improve my own business? What is my company's flywheel? What are my levers that I can increase the velocity and growth of my company with? And then two, on a bigger picture, where does marketplace fit into this? As marketplace sellers on Amazon, how can we position our companies to take advantage of this concept at Amazon? And obviously there's sellers, selection. There's also the idea of marketplace and its continued growth. So last year, for the first time, as I mentioned, small and medium businesses and marketplace crossed the halfway point, and now more than half of the items sold on Amazon come from marketplace sellers. More than 140,000 businesses surpassed $100,000 in sales, and Amazon is starting to focus on telling that story to the public at large and to the government. We empower small businesses, and we give business owners a marketplace that they can grow their business and hire employees. And they actually published a small and medium business report for the first time, along with that 2017 letter to shareholders. And here are a few points from that report. There's a link to it as well at the end of my presentation. And I think you can expect this focus to continue, since it's a good story to tell. Even in the offices I work in, on the walls now, there's pictures of entrepreneurs that own businesses on Amazon talking about how they grew their business, and how they're succeeding in employing people and building their local community through this business. Interestingly, Amazon Marketplace was also a huge disruptor to the business. In the mid-2000s, there was a war going on inside Amazon about Marketplace, since a lot of these vendor managers at Amazon and publishers were trying to sell goods on Amazon, and then Amazon was also letting Marketplace sellers come on and compete on that same ASIN listing. And so there was an internal war, essentially, for the customer. And vendors and product owners were writing some nasty letters and fighting with Amazon, threatening to pull their products and brands because Amazon was allowing this to happen. And you had Marketplace, what we call third-party sellers, which is the organization I work in, and then retail or first-party sellers competing with each other. And there's still a very thick wall between the two orgs. Like, I'm not allowed to speak to retail employees about much because there could be some pricing implications, right? So we have to keep those two orgs kind of separate. And that idea of creating internal tension in a company leads us to the second operating principle. And the idea that at Amazon, it's always day one. And Amazon will never stop being a startup. So I think about day one as, let me go back because I wanted to actually share a little story. This building right here, this big black one, is the day one building at Amazon on the Seattle campus. And it's the building that Jeff Bezos works in. He's on the 6th floor, as there is an insurance policy where you can't get a fire ladder up above the 6th floor. It's kind of a weird thing. And that name follows him around. So Jeff has worked in several different buildings at Amazon. Each time he moves, that building becomes day one, to continue to emphasize this philosophy that it's always day one. Will always be a startup. And the reason is from the Amazon perspective, day two is when your company starts to fold. It starts to die. And I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with the concept of a beginner's mind in Buddhism, but it's the idea of approaching the world as a beginner, as a learner. That everything's new, you need to learn. And that's what this speaks to me about. And you can also think back to the day one of your own business and how important was each customer in that first day. How focused were you on your business on that day? It's a cool philosophy to use to keep yourself inspired and motivated and hungry to improve your business. As a day one company, the idea is to, how do you maintain that, right? It's a hard question to answer. At Amazon, it's answered through fighting off day two. So how can we do that? The first thing you can do is have a true customer obsession, where each customer is your lifeblood. You look at these purchases and these experiences as the foundation of your business. A lot of times you'll hear this from Amazon, that some companies are focused on how they can charge their customers more for their products. Amazon is always going to be focused on how can we charge our companies less, or our customers less. And I know that can be a frustrating position to have, especially as an Amazon seller, when there's a race to the bottom and 30 people having offers on the same ASIN. But it's the perspective of sharpening the price and creating a low-cost, everyday low price for customers. Another way you can fend off day two is to resist proxies. And what Amazon means by that is getting away from the true foundations of what your business is about. So an example is process. You hear companies talk a lot about improving processes, and that's awesome. But when your focus, when you forget why you're improving the processes, that's a proxy. Another example could be competitor focus, or focus on hiring. You need to keep your eye on what the true goal is of these things that you're focused on. And if you don't, you could end up as a big bureaucratic company focused on the wrong things that aren't improving experiences for your customers. Another way to fend off day two, embrace external trends. I mean, I think there's a huge library now of companies that didn't do this, like Blockbuster or Kodak, and it's tough to keep your eye on this, and sometimes you do have to cannibalize your business a little bit. When Kindle was launched, or before it was launched actually, the executive that was put in charge of designing this device and getting an e-reader on the market was told by Jeff, I want you to kill the publishing business and kill our book selling business. And so the idea of creating internal conflict and building teams to disrupt and cannibalize your own business is a fantastic way to make sure you're always embracing external trends. And the last way to fend off day two is high velocity decision making. A lot of companies make really big, high quality decisions. The Amazon perspective is, yeah, we need to do that, but we can't make them slowly. We need to make fast decisions. Even important decisions, the concept that's talked about at Amazon is the idea of a two-way door. If you can come back from that decision and you can undo it, then make it quick and just run with it and be agile. If it's a decision that you can't come back from, slow that one down. But even for big decisions on how to delight customers, or invent new products for sellers, or whatever it is, if it's a two-way door, we're encouraged to move fast and get it done quick and make high velocity decisions. So with that, I encourage you in your businesses to insist on high standards, obsess over your customers way more than your competition, and maintain a beginner's mindset and keep your company focused on day one. Here are those resources I mentioned. So the top one is something that a lot of sellers don't know about. It's a top selling ASINs report. You can download this report. It's updated every month, and it shows you by category what the top selling ASINs are, whether or not Amazon has a retail offer on it, how many sellers are selling it, whether there's FBA or not on that product. And it's a great resource, especially for arbitrage, if you want to get an idea of what the hottest items are. So this is updating every month. The next one is a link to the shareholder letters. You can also just Google it. It might be the easiest way to do it. The marketplace report and the leadership principles. And then my contact information. And with that, I'm happy to try and answer some questions and do what I can if anybody has a few. There. There we go. And feel free to shoot me an email as well if you have a question about Amazon. I'll try and answer it as quick as I can.
Go ahead and raise your hand if you've got a question, and we'll get a mic to you so we can make sure it's on the recording. Come on, this is Amazon. You have a question.
Question on the business side?
Yeah.
What are you seeing when somebody switches over to the business side? Are they increasing 30% sales? Are they diminishing from their normal? What are you seeing?
Like the B2B?
Yeah.
Yeah. So B2B is a really interesting thing going on at Amazon right now. And if you're not thinking about it, I recommend that you do. So B2B, the B2B market is way bigger than the consumer market. I think it's it's a ridiculous number, 14 trillion or something. And Amazon, starting 3 years ago, launched this idea of Amazon Business, which it's a free service that all professional sellers can sign up for. So if you haven't turned on Amazon Business, I recommend that you do it. It gives you access to some additional features like quantity discounting, business-only pricing. You can upload credentials. So if you're a small or diversity certified business, get that up in there. And then another unique thing about it is Amazon has an entire team out there recruiting customers onto Amazon. So there's sales teams out there calling on corporations, trying to get them to move their procurement onto Amazon. And it's one of the big value props is a consolidated spend. So if a company, one of our big customers that we are allowed to talk about is Stanford. They're working to move all of their procurement onto Amazon, and their suppliers as well. So they can consolidate spend, have one place to go. And the business is growing rapidly. I don't know the exact numbers and wouldn't want to hazard a guess, but it's one of the high growth, high profit areas of Amazon right now. It's continuing to spike up. Also, having a business buyer, a business customer account on Amazon is free. So if you haven't done that, I'd recommend check it out. The user experience is different, the branding's different, and the product recommendations are different. So it's like Jan San or maintenance repair operation. It's a neat new area of Amazon.
On a similar note, with Amazon recognizing the small and medium-sized businesses as being a big part of their everyday business for themselves, what are some of the active ways that they're going to be focusing on making that experience better and building that relationship with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in my day-to-day, there's a lot of struggles that sellers face. From suppressed products to account health issues. And I know one thing that Amazon is doing is promoting those stories. So telling that entrepreneur story based on seller accounts on the marketplace. There was an announcement a few weeks ago about Amazon shutting down customer accounts that do too many returns. And what I think's interesting about that is that's the first announcement that I've seen that is actually in the favor of a seller, as opposed to continuing to invest everything in the customer experience. And they're standing up teams like the one I'm on that are doing account management and working with sellers and recording anecdotes every day and pushing those into the higher ups to look at what are sellers struggling with and how can we start building products and services on Amazon Seller Central to start addressing some of these problems. I know that's not super specific, but it is something that definitely is a focus at Amazon. How can we make this experience better for sellers?
Great. We got a question over here, Kyle.
Yeah.
My question actually goes along the lines of what you're talking about. As an Amazon seller, if I have a problem, reaching out to seller support is one of those frustrating situations where I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall, an AI, or someone overseas who doesn't understand the problem and or isn't empowered to fix the issue. And I understand there's different teams that have to be involved, but how does a seller get to a point where we can actually have someone like you that we could actually talk to if we have an issue? Because this is the main frustration that I have is issues that I can't resolve. I have an email, an IP notice comes in, and I respond to the IP notice. It goes into the ether, and I get nothing in return. I don't get told that I sent the right thing. I don't get told I sent the wrong thing. I don't get told anything. Meanwhile, my business is under a cloud, and I don't know whether I'm in trouble or not.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of ranting here, but my question is overall, is Amazon looking to move to something where we can actually talk to someone who can answer our questions on an entry-level basis, or make that more available to us?
Yeah, and that's a great question, and it's a very universal question. Even the sellers that are in my portfolio that I work with on B2B express that frustration, and they tell me quite often, "I wish you had more power. You know, I can complain to you, but you can't. I don't have the power to unsuppress a product or turn back on in a seller account." And I know that there's a few ways that I'm aware of that it's being addressed. One is anybody part of the paid account management service in the room? It just launched about 8 months ago. There's a paid account management service that Amazon's starting to look at offering. The interactions with seller support, there's new ways that's being tracked, how long cases are open, how long it takes to solve them. I recommend definitely putting in a lot of feedback. Like we're in Seller Central, there's those feedback opportunities. Populate those. Those do get read. As much as you can, when you're submitting cases in seller support, throw Amazon's policies in that case as well. Say, here's my question, here's what it says in the policy, I need you to fix this. And be persistent, open up lots of cases. I know it's a weird thing to recommend, but it can have an effect. And I wish I had a better answer. I know it's a common frustration and something that Amazon is aware of and is working on. Specific.
All right, another question?
I should ask too, what is something coming up pretty soon that everybody should be aware of with their business? Prime Day. Yes, that's coming up sometime in July. I don't know the date yet, but it's coming up fast. So, get your products and your promotions and your sales ready, because that is bigger than Black Friday. Prime Day is massive.
This has been really useful. Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah.
My question is about, so I hear that and I see that they're really focusing on the medium, small businesses. Mm-hmm. I also see that they're launching private label products like they're going out of style. Amazon is doing that.
Yeah.
So I get concerned as a private label seller and a retail arbitrage seller, concerns on both ends. One side, they continue to find, they have the best algorithms in the world to see what's selling. So they continue to launch private label products, and that's only going to increase. That's only been increasing. So as a private label seller, there's a concern there. And then on the retail arbitrage side, I just hear that for resellers, they haven't been as welcoming or as wanting for resellers, because if they're wanting to get the lowest prices and resellers are looking for the spread between buying and selling, it's a conflict of interest. So I'm curious, private label side and retail arb side, if you could speak to that a little bit.
I am so far away from the private label side, I don't know much about it. I mean, I see it happening too. You have just as much visibility as I do. Obviously, Amazon uses all the data that they gather to make decisions on what to sell and what not to sell. I know on the arbitrage and reselling side, and most of the sellers I work with are resellers. They're not brand owners. Resellers still do a lot more business on Amazon than brand owners in most cases, except for like Samsung and Apple and stuff. But the enhanced brand ownership tool that was released, I think 7 or 8 months ago, is affecting that as well. Where if I'm, say, DeWalt, and so I register my brand on Amazon, I can start policing the brand a little more. I can start going after sellers maybe I don't approve of, or I can try and enforce minimum advertised pricing. And so it creates that conflict that you're talking about, and I don't think I have a great answer for it. At the same time, if you do own and have a registered brand on Amazon, you get access to a whole bunch of new tools, and that's changing every day as well. And so it is a tension, and I think Amazon struggles with it as well, because arbitrage and reselling is such a huge part of the Amazon marketplace, and obviously Amazon makes a lot of money off of it. So how can we protect brands and maintain that huge selection, and at the same time keep it as an open marketplace? It's a hard question. I'm sorry, I don't have a great answer for it. Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
All right.
to piggyback on that one. I've been aggressively building my arbitrage business on Amazon for 4 years. Like arbitrage sellers. Does Amazon like arbitrage sellers?
From my personal perspective, I mean, I do. Most of the accounts I work with are arbitrage and resellers, and they do huge numbers on Amazon, obviously. I think if you took the perspective of looking at what new features and services and tools Amazon's building and releasing, you might lean towards the negative on that answer. And I don't know. I do. And the sellers I work with do pretty well and share a lot of the same concerns that I'm sure all of you have when, HP throws down this new rule on certain toner cartridges. A lot of the toner sellers are going, how am I supposed to do this? There's people out here that are not following the rules and people that are, and the people that aren't following the rules seem to be doing great. And so it's a weird tension. And I wish I had a better solution. Maybe 5 years when I get promoted a few times, I could give you a better answer.
All right, we got one right here. We'll do 2 more questions. So one, and then I got you right there, Tom.
I need to apologize first because I'm kind of going to piggyback off the gentleman in the orange shirt.
It's all right.
So my particular question is RA. I've personally gotten out of it just out of fear from reading stuff on Facebook, this, that, and the other. But I've met several people here today that are just killing it. Great, ROI, things are good. So that's got me curious. A lot of times on Facebook, you'll see one person saying, well, I submitted my Walmart receipts and they had no issue. The next guy saying, I submitted my Walmart receipts and they suspended my account. Why are sellers getting 2 totally different? It's like depending on the time and day and who you get different treatment.
Yeah. And I've noticed that too. And I've heard similar complaints where when you're submitting invoices or whatever documents that are being requested by seller support, it does seem like it depends on who's looking at it, what kind of a mood they're in, and if they've had coffee or not. And that I don't have a great answer for that. When I'm working with sellers, I encourage as much proof as possible. So pictures of products, manufacturers' letters, make it as easy a decision as possible. And I don't know why that happens. I think there's clear policies, and the more you can go back to those and include those with anything you submit, the better chances you have of getting a consistent, reasonable answer. And there are just such a huge team in seller support that is all over the world, and is trying to close and handle as many cases as they possibly can on a daily basis, that there are going to be some weird, inconsistent decisions sometimes. And so my advice is to just make it as clear as it possibly can be, knowing that there's a seller support associate trying to solve 30 cases a day or something. I don't know what their quota is, but it's the job. Yeah.
All right, one more question up here. Tom?
So you're a brand owner as well? You have your own?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So working for Amazon and knowing how and where the Amazon business is going, does that affect what platforms you put the products on, or how you're gearing your marketing? And
It hasn't yet. My company is very new, and it's making board games. And right now, I'm doing arbitrage. I'm buying board games at like Goodwill and yard sales, and then selling them on eBay and Amazon to try and fund print runs of future board games that we have designed. And when we get to actually launching that brand, I am going to do it on Amazon and as a brand owner, because just there's no other place you can get in front of that many customers. And so I think the knowledge of what tools brand owners get, it gives me help, obviously, but it hasn't affected the business really all that much yet.
I guess would you consider going to like a Shopify? Somebody's saying that Amazon uses some of that information to make their own private label products.
Hey, Tom, hang on just a second. Go ahead and use this so we can get recorded.
Someone again over here had mentioned, they can take all the data and make similar products that they know will do well. Does that make you think twice about maybe moving this to your own Shopify store or do something that can protect your product?
No, I mean, I think Amazon's going to do private label stuff in huge mass market products, like, cables and adapters and some furniture. I'm not worried about them making board games. I'm not worried about that happening. I think something I am considering, and I don't know if anybody in the room uses Amazon exclusives. It's another Amazon program where essentially you agree to only sell your product on Amazon and your own website and not anywhere else. And then you get some extra marketing support and visibility on Amazon. I think there's a higher referral fee when you're in that program as well. But that is something I'm going to consider just for that visibility and, kind of shine on the product, especially launching a new product.
All right. Hey, guys, let's give it up for Kyle.
Thank you all so
Kyle.
much.